therefore is called, this country itself is called Natal, because they found it on Christmas Day. So they call it Natal, which means Christmas
and also related to
birth.
birth.
Yeah, in Portuguese. This is, it's not because I want to make history class, but it has connection with this poem. And Fernando Pessoa wrote this poem not under his real name, but he has many, I don't know how to say that in English, he has different names.
Pseudonyms.
Yeah.
Heteronyms?
Voilà, hétéronyme.
Heteronym.
Hétéronyme.
Heteronymous? Do you say it in
Because it's not surname.
you change
Right.
your character
Because
different
Yes,
nobody
some-
knew, because the surname is, let's say,
you
it would
invent
be
different characters
Daisy or whatever, you will know it's me. But if you are a writer and you have heteronym, you choose, like he had 19, I guess. So it was because he was able to be published under different names. So this Ode Maritimus was written under another name, I think is Alvaro.
sorry, I was just checking.
Oui, Heteronymous. It's
That's a word.
Heteronymous.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's the same word in English. No?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just not common, but it is.
Álvaro de Campos. Well, one of the heteronyms that you were speaking, Álvaro de Campos.
Oui, Alvaro de Campos.
De Campos. And E, yeah.
So the poem starts, I go back to the film script, to the film possible scenario. It says I. And immediately you have many reasons to know because you read that it's a man and not a woman. And the first verse is masculine. Something in the beginning of the poem is masculine because the first word is alone. And in Portuguese or in French, you know if alone is masculine or feminine. In English it's a little bit different, but already you know, before I, you know, alone. So you know already it's a man alone. On the desert quay, in a harbor, you know, desert quay, in this morning summer, I look toward the la barre. In English, it's when you are on an estuary, the flow of the river breaks the sea, you know, when it breaks the sea, makes a big wave.
Mm-hmm.
The reef? It's not, the reef, it's not that. It's a sort of wave that is created by the two flow, you see?
Yeah.
I have the
Two
word
parents,
in
two wave, sea and
la barra, Portuguese. I look toward the wave. I look, which is the horizon. Huh? I look toward the indefinite. I look and j'ai plaisir à voir. E contento de ver, I feel happy to see. Small, black, but clear. Paquebot. It's a ship, but it's a ship rather huge.
Lava?
Packet.
Yeah, packet.
Well, it's a
Tanker?
no. It's
It means a backboat,
where
a ship that could also transport.
Where do cruises? No?
Yeah, but in the beginning of 19th century, it's more traveling, you know, because you're not cruising. You go
to Africa with these ships.
or go to South America or go to New York. If you cross the ocean, a boat could carry goods and trade and also passengers.
Like a freighter.
You know, that's a backboat. So it's a way of traveling overseas because planes were not existing or only experimentally, you know.
What year are we talking about? What year?
This is the beginning of the 20th century. Je regarde vers la définie and I look and I feel happy to see small, black but clear, a ship entering. She, I think a boat is a she in English, huh? She appears very far but neat and classical in its ways, as if the shape of that kind of boat is not weird. Already you know what kind of boat it is. She left behind in the distance, in the air, the smoke.
Yeah.
Because at that time, alright. So I stopped there, that's the beginning. And that's very early in the morning, so it will describe as the boat is entering. It describes the contradiction in distance and time. It's something that really exists in filmmaking, that you can control the distance and the time. So therefore, this boat is small, black, in the distance with a little smoke behind, and the poem will describe that the boat is entering the harbor very fast, but because it was very far, it's time enough to bring up almost a complete story of all the Portuguese history. From the time that this little black dot hooked himself on the key, you know. The complete history of Portugal is there. At that time of the morning, and it's dawn, it's the first ray of day, and by the time it ends, it's still morning, but dawn is over. It's morning day, you know. So it's like maybe 3/4 of an hour. But in that 3/4 of an hour, you have the time to see a ship entering, the life of the harbor and the city around, the noise, the voice of people calling themselves, and the traffic starting, you know, all this. And that man alone, of course, it's possible now to create why he's there, but in his monologue, he has the time to imagine what it means to be in this harbor in Portugal, and being Portuguese means that he can transport himself. The boat is entering and he transports himself with all those boats that left that harbor and discovered new continents. Huh? And who discovered, the sailor on this boat discovered not only new continents, new shores, beautiful or horrible landscape, smiling people or aggressive people with sword and arrows, you know, and therefore discovered a part of themselves. In the poetry there are a lot of moments where he imagined himself discovering a new country and being able to be amazed and yet to be a predator, to grab gold and women and take people into slavery. All this beautiful landscape goes together with a possible wild and terrible experience. Mm-hmm. And also the heat and the disease and the animals. All this is mixed in the times the boat is entering the harbor. And yet, the monologue is constantly coming back to that man alone and of his life as a man of the 20th century, so far away of those discoveries, which probably will never experience nothing of the sort, you know, no adventurous life of that sort. He knows he's not even going to run in the jungle and rape women or kill lions. You know what I mean? He's a civilized man, enjoying watching this boat coming, and yet he regrets in a way that he is condemned to be a man alone at that day, not being able to be all Portuguese men ever existing, you know. And I think it's not, that's why I told you Fernando Pessoa was born in Durban, because I think this being born in Durban, so far away from Portugal, gave him, it's true that Vasco da Gama and all that is part of Portuguese history, but for him, it meant something different. It meant not the attraction of discovering new countries, but the contradiction of knowing in Portugal that these things were done. It did happen, will happen no more. And yet he's there alone in that single place, knowing all that. And I think, so this was one of my possible fiction proposal. This is one. And the second one, and we can discuss about that, is something you've seen many times in film, and it is a wonderful set that is linked to cinema forever, is a train. I think train, whether you're inside and the landscape is like a screen, or you're outside and you see the train going somewhere, bring fiction, or is a transport fiction, I should say, not bring. It's a fiction transporter, I think. It not only it was used probably in the first cinema image, the Iron Horse, but it's inside also a very special set of science fiction. If you think about it, I think for a lot of very different fiction, it has been used for Western, for comedies, for historical film, murder stories, like Hitchcock used it 3 times in a very different way, but very interesting. Like the ship in Pessoa poem, it's also a set that is moving in time. So there is also movement in time, not only in space, which is interesting because you can slow it down if you need, or make an ellipse and, because it's and it's more abstract. It's terribly linked with film because a car is driven by someone, even if you have a chauffeur, it's a small space that is driven by someone that might make a mistake, might go fast. Also, a train is supposed to run on railways, which means there are tracks. It cannot change the itinerary just like that. The itinerary is ready, which is, if you think, interesting for a story. If it's stopped in a place where it should not, it's an accident or an attack or something wrong. And even if people are driving the train, there are drivers that are not driving the train, they are just checking that everything is all right with the train going to its destination. So I think, even though, yeah, and the people who are inside the carriage, they are like a sort of audience. They are driven. They bought a ticket. They are driven somewhere. Normally they know where, but it's not them driving. They are driven, and they have this window with a sort of landscape that can give them some clues, or not if it's night. But if it's night in a train, the blackness through the window is also very full of possible fiction. So I think these were my 2 objects, vehicles for fiction I choose with you, if you're interested in both, and if you want us to analyze what is interesting in having a fiction from one guy alone, holding in his mind the time and the distance, or being inside a train and being driven. that's what I wanted. We can do both, but I wanted to propose you that instead of, but it's not an obligation. I was afraid that you might be bored by my anecdotes about my own film, so that's why I brought that. Because it's also something that interests me. To be able to discuss a possible object and not about something that exists. We can do that after you've seen films and Q&A like usual. Yeah.
In Brooklyn, I used to live 5 meters away from an elevated subway, and it was a law, so I would often have the lights off, and it would be night, and I would see the elevated subway go by with its lights on. So I had 3 large windows, as close as that screen to me. The windows are here, 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 and as the train would go by, the lit windows of the train would reveal to me in brief flashes what is going on, and it moves through 3 frames.
Like a film.
Like a film. So my question is, do we have to be inside the train?
No, I think this is the whole subject. Do we have to be inside? And use the train as containing something we have some interest, or that is designing something in the place where the film starts, let's say that the story starts, not film. Or are we going to choose inside the train and knowing this window, the loft window, and knowing that there is a lonely man there watching the train? I mean, I don't know, you see, it's up to you that what you describe is a light effect in your apartment of the train passing at night. But if there is light in your apartment,
Yes, I see.
the passenger going there every night should be used to see your place, or that place, and being interested to know if you are there tonight or not. Or maybe you have some friends or having a party, or maybe you're already sleeping and it's all dark, or you're gone, or whatever, you know. I think that's what I mean about point of view. You know that being a painter, I guess. So for me it's if you're interested in something, if you're not interested, you're not obliged to. But I think it's good to be more concrete in storytelling this time, and not always telling you about my experience, because my experience starts exactly where we are this morning. They start with where is the starting point? Is it to just invent a story, or to already decide if you are inside the train or outside the train, inside the ship or outside the ship? You know what I mean? I think this is a very important step in fiction. I think you can also consider this question is raised also when you do documentaries. one making a documentary is not unaware that where he stands, it's the main things, you know. Last week, no, 2 weeks ago, I saw a film made by an anthropologue from Chicago University, Ben Russell, who works in Suriname. It's not important. He's been studying people living in Suriname, which is a part of South America, the north part. It's a place that used to be owned by Dutch. And therefore, in the forest, because it's part of the Amazonian forest, the slave who ran away, the Maroons who ran away from the plantation, lived in the forest with the Indian for 400 years. This guy is studying them, but he's also a filmmaker, and he's making documentaries about this part of the world. And I think you know by now there is a sort of fashion to film the world from an helicopter. So in documentary, as if it was a very ecological point of view, to film the surface of Earth from an helicopter, to show the disaster, the industrial disaster of loss of forests or something like that, chemical disaster, pollution disaster. And I always think it's fake. It's a horrible point of view to show our surface like that, you know, because it's a point of view of a cup. It's not a point of view of someone who is telling you, as they say, this is a precious earth, please. No, it's a point of view of a cup for me, you know.
Well, everything's flat. Like there's no
and it's a point of view of something that is saying, look what you've done.
Yeah.
And not from the people.
No. And this, if I mention this man from Chicago, his films are extraordinary because they are made, he's always, he made great films, he's always together with the people he's filming, working with them. One of his films is about two brothers. One day of those two brothers, completely different style. They have two different lives. And they live in the forest and they go to the city to buy stuff and they come back from morning to night. And there is not one word exchange between the filmmaker and those two boys, although they are filmed in a very intimate way. Sometimes they are far, but most of the time the guy is walking with them. The camera is there, you know, and it's not intruding because sometimes they can look through the camera and they don't, it's not intruding their life, they are walking, they can walk faster if they want, you know. There is something like a sort of walking with that shows a lot of things without accusing, without intruding. It's the perfect point of view, and although they speak a language, either they speak in Dutch when they are in the city, or their own language when they are in the forest, both I don't understand. It's not important at all. You don't need subtitles. You just, it's so, you're so much with them. The point of view is so right. And it creates a sort of suspense because it's like a train. We are in walking with them, going with them. We don't know where we are going. We don't know when it will end. The film lasts maybe 2 hours, and yet I've seen no one get bored. I mean, it's like an incredible suspense. You know? There is a moment where I think one in the city, suddenly they disappear. One is getting out of the bus, and the other one is hidden by a car, and they're not there anymore. And then suddenly, one is. It's incredibly interesting in terms of documentary, but it's also what I try to explain is there is no so much difference between the point of view of a director who is doing a documentary or fiction. The guy in the helicopter is only good if he's the cop. You know, I mean what I mean. Searching. Otherwise, no. I think helicopter is good in film, but not to accuse us. You know, you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's why I think to choose where we are, if we are in the train or not, it's or in the boat or up the quay or in the loft. And Brooklyn is important to start with. Which means also that we could be in an helicopter filming a train. Like the opening of this very famous film with Spencer Tracy, an old movie of the 50s. I'm sure you've heard about the film. It starts with a sequence shot of a train crossing Texas or whatever and stopping at a small station. And then curtain, we are with Spencer Tracy coming out of the train, and is a sort of sheriff or whatever coming for vengeance. You have seen that film? It's very famous.
Yes, I can't hear what it is. I remember the sequences, but
the opening is really famous because of that sequence shot, you know, of that train going, and you don't, what's going to happen, and then the cut is telling you something about a man is coming down in this small, deserted train station. What for? And if I remember well, he has a limp or something, he's walking. So it looks like a veteran, you know, something, the fiction is immediately there. If you look on your, en français, in French, it's called un homme est passé, a man is
just passed.
Yeah.
By.
Passed by. The pass is mean dead.
No, passed by. I just remember, not what you already just spoke about trains. Sometimes it's interesting when two trains are side by side, and then they stop. One goes in one direction and the other goes in the other, and just like have this brief moment connection maybe somebody sitting on the other side.
Filmmakers made a film that started like that.
Oh, I don't know. But it happens
With Nastasia Kinski and Anya Shigula.
And it's interesting. You just suddenly you have like eye contact, and then perhaps you can think, what is this person about? What is he going? What he or she is doing? That is interesting, I think. And also, when we are inside a train somewhere, and also somebody comes and sits on the other side, and then you have some eye contact. You analyze the person, you think, what is he or she doing, thinking, I don't know. And then the person then goes away, and you start, you go on. Well, I don't know that that's the beginning of a fiction, but it's interesting. But perhaps I would prefer this, stop at the train, look together outside, and, well,
yeah.
Something.
And there is a famous, it's a vast subject, but there is a very, in India they are making 400 films a year, Bollywood it's called. But in one of the very successful, they're all successful, but one of the very famous one is called, I think, Denis, and it's about a young man from a rich family who is waiting for a train. In India, trains are very important because there are not many roads and
they're crowded.
And also because it was an English colony, a lot of railways were designed and well kept by Indian after English people left, and they are famous in their fiction and in their folk song, or in their own fiction. Train are very important. So this film is about this young man. It's night in a station, and the train is late, and it's cold, and he's waiting, and he's the only passenger waiting outside, and he's tired, and suddenly you hear a cough or a sneeze, I don't remember, and he thinks, and he asks, he takes a cigarette from his pocket, and he asks, he thinks it's a man sleeping there, a hobo, and he asks for a light, for a cigarette, and he walks 2-3 steps, and then the cover is moving, and this beautiful young girl show, and she's cold, and she asks for a hot tea, and he's going away to wake up someone to find a hot tea for her, and when he comes back, the train, he missed the train is leaving with the girl. You have seen the film?
No, just there with you.
Okay. Because it's great. And then he realized this girl belongs to a terrorist group, and she probably do it on purpose to send him away because she was there waiting for people, So he's involved because he's in love with this, with the terrorism thing, And as it's a music, like always Indian films, they have a musical part. There is a great moment, long, I think it's a full reel of the film, like all the people who have no money, they travel on the roof of the train. So he knows she's traveling on the roof with her comrades, so he's going to join them. And there is this complete choreography on the roof train, running fast with songs and dance, and also tunnels. So every time there is a tunnel, they have to, or sometimes in the darkness and in the smoke, going on singing and dancing, It's But in that story, the train is leading, is like carrying, the fiction is passenger of the railway. You see what I mean? The train initiate the beginning, someone waiting in a station at night and meeting this girl, and from 2 or 3 reels, it's by train or through station that the story is taken care of, you know, and choreographed. Then after it takes place in Bombay, but I mean, it's very interesting to see the use of train there.
The name of the film?
I think it's Dilse, but it's
Indian.
I think if you tell that story to any little shop who sells Bollywood story, it's a very famous film. I have to tell you, I bought it like that with no French subtitles. Probably you can find English subtitles, but it's great, you know. And all the part on the ballet on the roof is. Well, anyway, to go back to the narration, with or without dialogue, I think. You are aware that it's interesting to decide what you choose in yourself, because I, a man alone, watching a ship in the morning, entering a harbor, or choosing train inside, out, is not I is also a sort of decision. If you decide to say I in a fiction, it's completely different than in you. If you are inside or outside the train, you can be I inside the train, I outside the train, but you can also enter in a fiction as a momentum. You don't need I. I was really, for me, the example of this poem, because the I is sort of, it's the train in that case. You see what I mean? I is the vehicle of the story. The ship is a perspective and the time process, and you see what I mean? But the fiction starts from I alone. A train, it could be a group of people, it could be one I also, but if you enter a train, if you choose from a train, you can choose if it's I, or they, or we, or she, you know, or he.
I would suggest you could have multiple, although not necessarily simultaneously. And the way I'm thinking about it continues the assignment with what you're just saying, combines what you suggested and the scenario I set up of looking out the window, but beginning potentially with a shot where you're not aware you're looking out a window. So maybe the window's open, or maybe the camera is projected out of the window, and then the camera itself would eventually in the window.
Yeah, but this is too early. Because already you are deciding a sort of setup of the camera. What I wanted you to decide to discuss is what is interesting to choose. To be inside, outside, to be high, or to be the one who described the high, the he or the she. You see what I mean? Where is the point of view? And then, when this is decided, let's say, this is the guy who lived in that loft in Brooklyn, or in the train passing by, or those two trains blocked for a minute or two on side by side. This is a situation. Now, what is the point of view? Because the setup of the camera, I think, of course, it's something that connects. But first, what is interesting is the point of view is it will indicate the complete trajectory of the narration without the camera position at all, just the point of view. I think that's what I wanted to. You want to speak?
No, I just have a thought. With both of yours, they're both
body language.
It's both privileged views.
No. May I interrupt you? Is it okay? Do you have a recess sometime to drink or?
It's up to you.
No. Me, it's okay if you need a hot drink or eat. Stop for a few minutes. It's good to me. I don't want to refrain you from eating or drinking or smoking. But maybe you ask your question and then we stop. Yeah.
For me, both of yours were about privileged interior views, like whether you're in the loft looking into the train, or whether you're in the train looking into the loft, or you're looking at the other train. It's these little spaces. It's like a privileged view into them, and I think that's kind of what's interesting about it. And for me, these little interior spaces are kind of like the brain. You're kind of getting interior spaces into people's interior lives visually.
My idea of combining the two would presuppose at least one of the trains. Well, there's 3 tracks outside this window, and one track, the Manhattan-bound track, the train often stops there in front of the window because the next stop is a Y shape where one of the train lines breaks off and goes to Ridgewood, and so often the train in front of the window that's closest, which is coming from deep Brooklyn going to Manhattan, stops and waits while the M train goes to Ridgewood. And so my idea of establishing the presence of the camera was to start where you're looking at they as they are stopped at the train, and yet you're not aware that the camera or the viewer of they is within a loft with a different set of associations. And so my idea was to combine what you were saying, potentially even with another train, because there's also an express track in the middle, and then the local deep Brooklyn bound 25 meters away. And to start thinking about what could be seen on this train 5 meters from the window when it stopped, and see what people are doing within that train. Maybe at night, maybe at day. At some point then, the camera could pull back, move to suggest the point of view of the eye who's watching you back.
So before we stop, I think what you describe is offering many possibilities, but at one moment there is a necessary, it's absolutely necessary before that, if this is a complex visual situation you're interested in, to decide why do you need this? Why this situation is so interesting for you in terms of cinema? And are you I in the apartment, or are you I in one of the train? You see what I mean? This is the decision that I think it's more important to decide what you want to see, where you want to lead us, I think. Because otherwise, it's an attractive situation where I can feel there is a murder scene, or a mystery, or someone you recognize you haven't seen for years, you know?
My suggestion is artificial because it's trying to.
It's not artificial, it really exists.
But I'm combining my interest with her interest, because these are the two things that were suggested. So in a way, it's constructed in a way that frees my interest.
It's true.
It's much about her. So
but then we will go on after the post, if you want. But think that this is a sort of disposal that is interesting, the link of you two. But it's we have to go beyond that to give a perspective to that. So there is not only a disposal, but it brings us somewhere, you know. Otherwise, the disposal is great. We can combine both. But it's interesting to propose where it leads us. And I agree completely of the combination of two, three point of view even. And what you says about danger in train, first time you travel, this time with a sense of security or looking at landscape is very interesting, because a fugitive on the roof or someone has a completely different vision of the tracks and the landscape and the feeling of train.
Yeah.
So it's a completely different person.
And even on this train, I accidentally got on first class, and I didn't know it was first class. And so, then I had to,
just like,
I was like, oh, that's the right train. Okay, cool. And then I had to move while the train was moving, go backwards a little bit.
oh, that's interesting. To move while the train is moving.
In which part of the U.S. were you traveling?
Oh no, this was here in Switzerland, from Geneva to this. No, I've hopped trains several times in the U.S. I still want to, just to be funny, hop a train to Portland, from like that movie with Lee Marvin and Ernest Borgnine. I just want to do that to be funny, but
it's great.
Yeah. Oh, that is. That fight with a 2x4 in it. Oh.
You know, I am part of he's dead now, but I signed a long time ago when I was very young. I'm part of the Lee Marvin Children fan club. No, I like this film. For me, to take a train in the US was also not at all touristic. It was completely linked to my memories of film. Whether I was in the north, like Portland or Seattle, or where I was crossing, when I was watching train crossing Texas going toward west, coming from east, near crossing Arizona, for instance, very dry place. those long trains, you know, with the whistle and tumbleweeds and everything. It was like completely amazing for me. It was not real, you know. I thought I was in a movie, you know. And it's because train and movie are really solidly, they grew, technology is almost the same, huh? They are an invention of the same time almost, you know. They are linked by their historical, so it's a good moment. Feed us? All right, let's have a 10-minute pause.
Sounds good.
Most of the time I just do it to get across the camera, but I've done it long too. Actually, there is a light rail, and actually I have been on that once, but my concept of a train is different from the subway, because trains need big, heavy. So I've never been on like a passenger train. Oh, definitely. Public transportation or in the Denver airport, you have to take a train. But it's
So this is fast forward. I know what you're okay. It's good.